Finally, it's happened. In over 120 years of there being two named Manchester clubs, at last we have a derby in the FA Cup final. This is something that I'd hoped for from being a kid in the 80s, especially after seeing two Merseyside derby finals. Why couldn't Manchester have its version? Now in 2023, things are very much different from the last years of Big Ron or the beginnings of Fergie's reign. There's been a massive paradigm shift. If you said to any red or blue from before 2009 that there would be a Manchester derby final, with one side going for the treble of League Cup and Champions League, I doubt that apart from some deluded Bertie diehards, anyone would say City would be the ones trying to forge themselves a place in history. But here's where we are, and it's United's duty to be in the last bastion against this corrupt club's dominance on the pitch, as I don't trust Inter to stop their charge. This season has seen both Manchester clubs move to another level compared to the previous one. Our boys under the new boss have been turned around from a side that was uncommitted, toxic, unprofessional and feared by no one, to one where we've got wins against all but two Premier League sides, Newcastle and Brighton, both of whom have had better than average seasons. Players like Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, Dalot, Lindelof and Rashford have all improved massively on the disaster that was the worst season I've seen as a Red last term. Not only this, but I don't have to remind you that we've already won a trophy, our first in 6 years, and didn't even exit competition until the second half of April this year. We've ended up third in the Premier League, which every Red would have taken, no questions asked, a year ago. Are we the finished article? No, but under Ten Hag and his disciplinarian regime, he's got the best out of most players. There's still some work to do, but there's light at the end of the tunnel to far better days ahead. Conversely, whether we like it or not, whether they got into this position by some small or probably massive breaches of financial rules, the blue side of the city, that used to be a joke for so long, are already being lauded by the pundits and fans throughout the land that their brand of football is the best that the Premier League has ever seen. Regardless, at this point, they've only just won one trophy, and they're already better than Fergie's treble winning side. I can't be disingenuous, and if Gary Neville and Roy Keane can say it, so can I. Manchester City are on another level. Pep Guardiola has seemingly cut out the mistakes that cost them the ultimate league European title in recent seasons, and now they are destroying the best in England and the continent have to offer. They are a massively tough ask, a 6-3 defeat at their place earlier in the season. But don't forget, we've beaten them too, on our patch, and deservedly so. They're not a bunch of immortals, and despite some of our notable setbacks this season, we're not mugs. This will be the 190th Manchester derby, with 78 United wins, 58 for City and 53 draws. This will be our 10th meeting in the FA Cup, and out of the previous 9, we have 6 wins. But this is the first final in any competition that we've contested. We have met before in 2 Charity Shields, both of which we won in 1956 and 2011 as champions. Of our more recent league meetings, all the ones from the 2020s, United have won 3, City have won 3, and there's been 1 draw. The Red 7/8 of Manchester have had twice as many successes in this competition over the years than the Blue 1/8, with 12 wins to 6, the last one coming in 2016. In fact, United have had at least 1 FA Cup success for every decade since the 1960s. United won 6 FA Cups before the Fergie era and 5 under the great man, with Louis van Gaal joining the great managers of the past, Ernest Magnall, Matt Busby, Tommy Docherty, Ron Atkinson and Fergie of course. We have also been runners-up on 8 occasions. City by comparison won their first FA Cup title 5 years before we did, in 1904, following it up 30 years later in 1934 when Matt Busby turned out for them. They also won it in 56 and 69, and then had to wait 42 years till they could save up enough money, winning it again in 2011, the first trophy under the new "we answer to no one" regime. Their most recent win came in 2019, on their way to a domestic treble, in a record 6-0 win over Watford. The Blues have been finalists on 5 other occasions. United's road to Wembley, as with the League Cup earlier this year, was strangely fairly comfortable, at least on paper. Each tie from the 3rd round up to that point was at home, and each match ended up 3-1. In round 3, Everton, who struggled with relegation all season, were dispatched despite a massive howler from De Gea, in a season of notable faux pas from the Spaniard. And we had the luck of an Everton equaliser, narrowly chalked off thanks to VAR, that would have made it 2-2. Only deep into stoppage time did we make progression comfortable with a Rashford penalty. Still run riot with Brazilians Casemiro and Fred carving up the goals between them. However, it's a far tighter affair against West Ham at home. Despite De Gea doing what he's done all season, saving us by getting the better of most of his one-on-ones, we started by going 1 down to the visitors. As with Everton, we were helped by an own goal, but this time around, a last-minute Garnacho winner, a strike beyond his years, secured our passage to the next round. Fred's 97th minute finish gave us a flattering scoreline, to be honest. The quarter-final against Fulham was the craziest match of the season for us. Despite playing some good football in the first half, we couldn't convert our chances, which has been one of the stories of the whole campaign. And so we were punished as Mitrovic put Fulham ahead just after half-time, and we looked in massive danger of going out. Thanks again to De Gea for some priceless saves that kept us in it. He has been an enigma all season. However, it all changed in the 75th minute. A clear handball on the line meant Willian was off, and a penalty. But for some reason, the whole Fulham squad completely melted down. The Cottagers' boss said too much and was gone, and key man for them, goalscorer Mitrovic, laid his hands on the ref and was ejected. And this was all even before Bruno took the resulting penalty from the handball. The Londoners lost the match with Sabitza's first goal for the club, a neat flick, and Bruno's convincing third, giving a scoreline that didn't show how much trouble we were in up to that 75th minute. The FA Cup semi was all about the keepers, with De Gea and his opposite number Brighton's Robert Sanchez both pulling off some remarkable saves to keep the game goalless and destined for penalties. A howling blast over the bar from Siegel's Solly March compared to Victor Lindelof's cool finish was the difference, and that pen took us into the final. City in comparison seem to make short work of almost all comers. That said, we've been accused of having an easy draw, as I mentioned before. Well, whilst that may be true, our corrupt neighbours have had all but one match at home, with 3 out of the 5 opponents being from the lower leagues. In round 3, they dispatched an already deteriorating Chelsea side 4-0. Their biggest test was a second home tie against title wannabes Arsenal, who were narrowly beaten with a Nathan Ake goal. Mid-table championship finishers Bristol City were the Blues' only away match in this year's competition, but they did take apart second-tier champions Burnley 6-0 in the quarter-finals. And then the runners-up in the division, Sheffield United 3-0 in the semi. The New Money Club have scored 17 goals in 5 matches, not conceding at all. That tells you much of what you need to know right there. They are dangerous in attack and mean in defence. United have had a great season with some amazing individual performances and improvement in form, but we have few match winners. Rashford and Bruno are the obvious ones, of course. They've both arguably had their best seasons at the club to date, and are different players in essence to the ones in the last campaign under Ole and then Ralph. They appear to be the ones most likely, and then there's Casemiro, who many Reds consider to be a catalyst for Ten Hag's side, using his ability and experience in a key area of the pitch just in front of the defence, and he has an eye for goal to boot. The defence, whilst prone to the occasional meltdown, generally looks solid, even without the butcher Lisandro Martinez partnering Varane at the back. Lindelof has really stepped up and is playing his best football at the club for years. Shaw's bookend in defence looks like it will be Wan-Bissaka. Both players have also had solid seasons this term. Eriksen will also likely start, and whilst he was very solid before his long-term injury in the middle of the season, he's not really been as influential in the handful of games he's had since his return. The Dane, however, could still nevertheless unlock City's defence given half a chance. Antony is out for the match, which is a blow for him, but is an opening to Garnacho, or more likely Sancho, for this now empty berth on the right. If that's the case, the Englandman really needs to deliver. Most worryingly, though, is Martial, because we know he'll lead the line, as it's between him and Weghorst, and despite his A for effort, I can't remember many poorer finishes at Old Trafford than the Dutchman as a centre-forward. And ironically, the problem we have with Anthony Martial is his effort. He has the ability, we've seen that over the years, but he just seems like he can't be arsed. If we had Weghorst's enthusiasm and work rate with his talent, we'd have something pretty special on our hands. Whilst we pray for our 6 to 7 out of 10 performance players to give us something extra, we have to hope that it's the opposite of our opponents. Whether we like it or not, City have got match winners all over the park. Haaland is now on excess of 50 goals for the season. Stopping him will be the main priority, but then what do you do about whichever attacking combination Pep goes for, comprising a selection from De Bruyne, Silva, Mahrez, Foden and or Grealish? De Bruyne is coming up to 32 years of age but isn't slowing down, and indeed all of them have shown their calibre not only in this campaign but over the last several campaigns. Now they've put their side in this position, going for the treble, and will all fancy themselves to be their side's key players, dictating the game and penetrating our defences. But even setting them aside, Gundogan has been brilliantly running the midfield, wearing the captain's armband and leading by example. Rodri is one of the best defensive midfielders in Europe, even being versatile to play at the back when needed, and like Casemiro, can chip in with a goal. And even once you get past him, you have to deal with one of the most stubborn defences in the Premier League, who've only conceded 3 goals in a game twice over all their matches this season, and didn't even lose either of them. And finally, as for Ederson in goal, he was only just behind David De Gea in his futile attempt to get this season's Golden Gloves accolade for the most clean sheets for himself. It's going to be an effort for Ten Hag to snuff out all of these key players and deal with Pep packing the midfield, making use of inverted fullbacks, and yet at the same time getting his players to play their own game. As for predictions, well, the odds are against us. Our City rivals are going for a treble, and however tarnished that accolade is, they're in intimidating form. It also helped them that Arsenal caved with some games to go, allowing them the luxury to rest players in the league leading up to this fixture and the Champions League final on the 10th of June. I believe that Pep will play his strongest side, which will test us to the limit. That said, Ten Hag knows how to beat City. He's already done it this season, and how he sets up will be crucial considering that our opponents can be so versatile. We can't afford to be reactive to what they do, or we've already lost. We have to press our game. If we look at history, United are used to treble busting. We did it in 77 to Liverpool and 85 to Everton. But this game will be even harder with the way City are playing. As I said just before, we've beaten them this season. That's true, but they tore us apart 6-3 before that, with us relying on 2 late Martial goals to save a bit of face. Our main problem, as it's been all season, is firepower. Can we finish our chances? And who outside Bruno and Rashford are capable of stepping up to do so? I don't like making predictions against my team, so I live in hope rather than expectation. And that's not a lack of loyalty. It's observing and then judging both sides' strengths and weaknesses. I trust in Ten Hag. So that was the Gadabout United preview of the 2023 FA Cup final. What do you think the score will be, and who will be the match winners in your opinion? Write them in the comments below and like, share and subscribe. Thank you as always for your support.